What's happening, internet? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Adrian, aka Fomex Cosplay. If you're new to my channel, I make a lot of cosplay tutorials, fan films, movie and TV reviews, fitness and fandom, and everything else in between. So if you like my content, please make sure to leave a like, comment, definitely subscribe to my channel. Today, we're going to go over my review of Paramount Plus's Halo TV series, or at least the first episode of it. Let's do it. I myself am not the biggest Halo fan, but I felt like this show could have been a perfect entryway for someone like me who liked the concept of the games and of the lore. It was supposed to be a good point to jump right in. However, that's not what happened. A little bit of context on the Halo universe. Halo is one of the largest video game franchises on Earth. Even if you've never heard of the name Halo, I'm sure you've seen their main protagonist, Master Chief. And with a name that cool, you know that he's an epic protagonist. Of course, based on his name, we know that that's not his real name. His real name is John 117. The main conflict of the Halo franchise is basically the Human Covenant War, where the humans of the UNSC fight off aliens from the Covenant. We start on planet Madrigal. This is another sci-fi desert planet, as if we haven't just seen Arrakis in Dune and Tatooine for the 100th time in Star Wars. If there's one thing you should know about this setting, it is that they have standard issue ugly haircuts in the future. There's only one default setting for haircuts in the future. It is ugly. What I appreciated was that they depict Spartans from the Inni perspective, Inni insurrectionists. That was okay. They show Spartans with the level of respect and the level of fear, a huge level of fear. What really got me while watching the show is that they have AKs 500 years in the future. And all they did to make it futuristic and in setting, 500 years in the future, is that they just bandaged all of their stocks. To compare with another famous sci-fi franchise, 500 years in the future, in the 26th century, there are no more conventional firearms in Star Trek. Star Trek, everyone has a phaser. They shoot lasers, and a few decades after that, they start shooting with TV remotes. And then here we are still using AKs from the Soviet-Afghan War. We have our current year protagonist with the worst haircut I have ever seen and the Netflix cast of diverse, relatable high school age characters. Leading this cast of the teens doing the drugs is Kwan Ah. Or as I like to say it, Kwan Ah! She is the daughter of the insurgent rebel general on Madrigal. One thing to note about our main current year protagonist, she is Korean because she speaks Hangul with her dad. I like the fact that they still use different languages and not just English in the future. Their main truck is mounted with an M134 minigun, M4s, tire AUGs, an MP5. It's been 500 years in the future. I don't see you using a spear right now. So if on the plus side, we finally see a realistic depiction of how screwed humans would be if the aliens ever invaded and we had to fight them. You can see that even without the plate armor that the Covenant elite troopers are wearing, they still have energy shields. So definitely, your 5.56 and 7.62 bullets aren't gonna fly through. It felt generic. It didn't feel special. Didn't feel special like the Halo franchise can feel, like the animatics and the trailers and the animated media of Halo feels. There's a different feel to it. Like, you can tell when something's generic. I like the fact that the Covenant called Spartans and Master Chief in particular demons, which means that they fought them before. Another good point of the show is that it had good first-person action scenes where you had a view from inside Master Chief's heads-up display like that. That harkens back to the games, where you're entirely in first person. It's an FPS. Something I noticed about the way the Spartans move because of the nature of their costumes, which I'm assuming is a casted silicone rubber fiberglass combination. So they move like Megazords. They move like suit actors inside Megazords. But let me tell you something. There is already a perfect depiction of how bulky super soldiers can move in an athletic, lithe manner. We saw it in the fan film Astartes. That is the perfect example of how genetically modified giant super soldiers should be able to move, given the fact that they are genetically modified. Once again, the CGI is decent, it's not exceptional, and sometimes it gets the bad. so their use of CGI is on the lower scale of acceptability. At the end of this encounter, they managed to defeat 20 Elite Covenant warriors. 150 insurgents were killed by the Covenant, except for Quan A. Master Chief is the perfect example of barges in, refuses to elaborate, leaves. This is just the opening fight scene, by the way. You know, this is the good part of the show, actually, if I'm being perfectly candid with you. The intro was good. It does things that normal intros do. I'm going to skip a lot of parts because that just kind of flew through. Master Chief picked up a rock that the Covenant forces were mining for. But we can see that the Spartans are very tightly controlled, very scientifically monitored. The UNSC uniforms are okay. They're on par with other depictions of UNSC ceremonial formal uniforms, like in Forward Unto Dawn. The planet Reach, as headquarters of Fleet Command, it's very sterile. And beyond being very sterile, it's very generic. They hit all of the set dressing points of every single sci-fi. There's always a scene in the lab. There's always a scene in a command center. There's always a scene in a hangar bay. There's always a scene from inside the cargo bay. A good contrast to the very sterile, very inorganic depiction of Reach. We have the organic, almost mushroom-like, almost nervous system-like depiction of the High Charity. We have established designs for the UNSC Marines. But how come they look like the mobile infantry from Starship Troopers in this one? Iron Man plus Pacific Rim style suit up scene for the Spartans, because I know that's how they get dressed, you know, the ring. A good thing the show did well was that the Spartans are actually very intimidating, and that entire seas of Marines part just to let 3 Spartans through. That's how you depict your super soldiers, with reverence, you know. Chief told the joke, which is good. Gotta let him have some bit of humanity here and there. But the thing about Chief is, alright, the one undeniable trait that he has that has to be consistent across all media, all of it. Chief is a bit dry, and he is definitely very, very quiet, because he is a stand-in for you, the player. You are the soul that pilots the meat puppet that is Master Chief. He can be anyone. You know, as long as you're holding the video game controller and fighting the aliens, you can be him, and he can be you. That's another thing about Chief's character. Chief always gets the job done. The first thing they did in this episode was they followed the Mandalorian format, where we have a stone cold killer who all of a sudden develops a heart for a young, defenseless character who is actually powerful on their own. It's not that that's a bad formula, but it's not what Master Chief is. Master Chief's Baby Yoda is all of humanity. Major point of his character is that despite the mistreatment of him by the UNSC, he serves humanity faithfully. He has sacrificed everything. All of a sudden, they give us this adoptive daughter for him to take care of. So much so that he takes off his helmet. It's episode 1 in season 1 of a show, and the main character who has remained helmet on for his entire depiction all of a sudden takes his helmet off. You're like, what's the big deal? The show isn't canon to the games anyway. That's the thing. A show that does not respect its main character by showing off the actor's face when the main character does not take off his helmet at all is a show that does not respect the source material. And a show that does not respect the source material does not respect the fans of the source material. They managed to do it for Judge Dredd in Dredd 2012. He never took off his helmet. He didn't go through a great character journey. You know, Anderson went through the hero's journey through that entire story. But they did it. They showed him with the personality. They showed him doing his job. They showed him kicking serious amounts of butt. And they showed him to be competent, capable, deadly, menacing, yet also surprisingly reassuring. That is the ultimate warning sign. You know? It's the same Boba Fett Bantha Poot. If they can't respect your character enough to let them keep their helmet on and develop them through their language, through their voice, through the way other characters see them. You know, it wasn't enough to just remove his memories, to just tear it from him so that you could have this entire arc where he rediscovers his memories and learns that he has a family, that he's been abused by this system. You know, the whole point of the Halo franchise is It doesn't matter who we were before. What matters is what we do now in the face of the annihilation of the human species. That's it. We have no choice but to come together. The past doesn't matter anymore because if we don't think about bonding in the present, we are going to lose the future. You don't need to humanize that concept in a single current year 16-year-old protagonist. Do that by showing chief next to ordinary humans, fighting on the battlefields next to Marines, rescuing civilians every once in a, this is just surface level understanding of the games. And on the surface, somehow, I can reach the core, or I can, gleam the core of what the games are saying in a way that the showrunners can't. I've seen this a lot in Star Wars nowadays. People complaining about the Grand Inquisitor's appearance. They'll say, oh, you should ask Disney for their budget. Let's see if you can do better. Who grew up fantasizing about these heroes, obsessing. It's not a matter of creative bankruptcy on their part. If you probably gave us the budget, we do it. The Kenobi fan film proves that these things are possible. Fan films are proof. You give fans enough budget, they're gonna make something that, although it looks cheesy, you look past the budget and you see that there is a story that's being told. A story told with passion and heart by fans who love the franchises that these showrunners are just bashing into the ground. What I find most disrespectful about this series is not just that it disrespects the lore. I can go past that. I'm not the biggest fan of Halo lore. It disrespects the fans. I am coming from the perspective of someone who has been beaten over the head for the past 3 years. Don't like it, don't watch it. I shouldn't have to argue this. Don't like it, don't watch it used to be an acceptable position. But nowadays, if you don't watch a certain show or a beloved franchise, they're going to say this is because the fans aren't open to change. That's because they don't like seeing people of color. It's hard to cosplay and pretend to be all cheery to make armor from shows that I didn't enjoy. I can tolerate low quality and low budget. I'm gonna do a review of Guardians of Justice, and despite its low budget, that was part of its charm. Because it was all heart. It poured everything into the story and into the animation to make something new, to make something different. So even if they make the main character's costume out of EVA foam, what matters is they have a story that they want to tell, and they're gonna tell it no matter how they can. Unlike these companies and all of the myths and legends nowadays of the modern globalized people, all of our stories are held in trust by corporations that hate you. The problem with Halo, alright, this TV show, it's more than just man babies crying about the latest, television streaming show. It is about these producers and showrunners who have the hubris to believe that they can hold the myths and legends of the modern day in trust for the people who need it. Let's argue that popular culture is culture. These people are the high priests and the elders who hold the secrets of our culture. Do you trust them? Use these stories of heroism and bravery to teach our children the values that you want to pass to our children. It does not stand on the merits of an adaptation because it did not adapt. It took the aesthetics of the original and slapped it onto something completely different, which is basically fan fiction, right? But at least fan fiction comes from a position of respect. This is committee created content media. I'm getting tired of these corporations looking down on their fans. You are not just making a corporate product. You are holding the popular culture. And as the guardians of the culture, your job is not simply to propagate it. Your job is to care for it. You are like the folk singers who memorized the epics. These characters are the cultural heroes, as sad as that is to say. They have to be treated with respect. And these companies no longer treat them with respect. They no longer treat you with respect. Because of the first 20 minutes, it was good. After that, fell apart. Episode 1 is a 4 out of 10. Will I watch the rest of the show? No. I'm not gonna waste my time anymore. That was my review of Halo Episode 1. If you like my content and want to see more of it, I do make more wholesome, more uplifting, more upbeat cosplay-based tutorials and videos. I'm planning on making more comedic shorts and sketches. Till next time, props to you and costumes too. Peace.